Hello, you wonderful people. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're all having a great day. Here at James Bond Forever, we're big James Bond fans, but that doesn't keep us from critically assessing James Bond movies. And although all James Bond movies are entertaining, some of them are very good, and some of them are just decent, and some specific James Bond moments are brilliant, while others are totally ridiculous. Today I want to discuss such a ridiculous James Bond moment, being the opening sequence of Diamonds Are Forever, the 1971 Bond movie, of course starring the legendary Sean Connery. With a 6.5 rating in the Internet Movie Database, Diamonds Are Forever can be seen as a decent movie, but for a Bond movie, it has one of the lower-end ratings. Now, some of that might be caused by the ridiculous and totally illogical events that take place during the opening sequence. Let's start off with the gun barrel sequence that shows Connery kind of unstable while shooting his gun. See how his right leg is kind of wobbling. And then we see Bond beating the crap out of some poor innocent man because Bond wants to know the whereabouts of his enemy, Blofeld. The sound of this scene looks very much dubbed, since we hear the poor man saying the word Cairo, while we don't see his mouth saying this particular word. Cairo! And Connery himself doesn't even seem to be present in this scene. We just see that the attacker is a man in a white suit. Could have been everyone. So that already starts a bit sloppy, but of course we are fans and we don't regard this as a real problem. But from there on it gets more silly, because then Bond is beating up yet another poor innocent man in the middle of a casino while asking where Blofeld is. I presume that Bond is after Blofeld in order to kill him. Going about beating up people in public places while asking for Blofeld might not be the best way to reach your objectives, because it warns Blofeld way in advance that Bond is coming for him. So not so smart. It totally ruins the element of surprise. I thought these secret agents had the tendency of trying to be secret, so that they have the upper hand against their enemies. Well, apparently not this time. Now let's kind of skip the next scene that is ridiculous for obvious reasons. By the way, if you analyze it frame by frame, which of course I didn't do that, then this scene contains a very brief moment of nudity, which is not typical for Bond movies. But never mind all of that, let's cut to the chase, because now we end up at the really ridiculous scene. Because Bond now has sneaked into the hiding place of Blofeld, which is some sort of laboratory where Blofeld's staff perform cosmetic surgery in order to change the identity of people. Logically, Blofeld knew in advance that James Bond was coming for him, so he plans to kill Bond by hiding one of his henchmen with a gun in a tub of mud. Really? Apparently, Blofeld's plan was to let this henchman rise from the mud and then shoot Bond. What? So we see Blofeld's assistants spreading mud on the face of the henchman in the tub. The mud is clearly covering parts of the man's eyes and ears and even his nose. The mud is applied very hastily, and the assistants walk away instantly, so they have no idea if this man in the tub can still see or hear anything, or even breathe. And he is supposed to be the one who is in the right position to pull a gun and kill Bond? Really? That was the plan? This guy in that mud tub can hardly see or hear anything. He can't move properly. His gun could get jammed because of the mud, so all of that doesn't make any sense. And how does that work with planning? How long in advance did that guy have to step into that mud tub in order to pull his gun right at the moment that Bond was entering the room? How did they predict at what point in time Bond would enter that room? And all that time there were these assistants with this guy who's lying in that tub, and those assistants said, wait, he's almost here. We're going to cover your face now with mud, or we're going to do that in 5 seconds. Yes, he's almost at the doorstep. We're leaving now. How does that work? And then when these assistants left the room, the man in the tub would have to assume that the next person entering the room would be Bond, because he can't really see or hear anything. So the man in the tub is in no credible position at all to kill Bond. Much easier and much more effective would have been for one of the men in the green coats to carry a gun and shoot Bond in the back while he was entering the room. Why not give all of these men in these green coats a gun? And then Bond enters the room and we see a close-up of the man in the tub. Miraculously, all mud that earlier covered his eyes has now disappeared. That's convenient. And then, according to plan, he rises from the mud with his gun, which of course is going very slowly because he is covered with mud. So of course Bond, he notices this. So the guy in the tub doesn't stand any chance at all. There is now a number of options for Bond. The simplest thing just being to pull his gun and shoot at that guy. But no, today Bond is in for a bit more drama. So he performs a totally unnecessary head roll. And then Bond pulls some kind of rope, leading to a load of mud being spilled upon that guy in the tub. How could Bond have known what the effect of pulling that rope would be? Why did they leave the assassin in a position in which just simply pulling the rope that is hanging right over his head would eliminate him? And how is it possible that this guy is drowning by a few buckets of mud, while he could have just moved 1 foot to the left or the right and then he would have been still alive now? It's totally ridiculous. And then it gets even worse, because then the other henchman and Blofeld show up. And if the plan was just to kill Bond, then why start a conversation with him? Why check the pockets of his suit? Well, you could just shoot him right away. And come on now, Bond is wearing some kind of mousetrap in his pocket because he knew in advance that Blofeld's henchman would check that pocket? Really? And then Bond is standing with his back to Blofeld, and Blofeld does nothing. It would have been the perfect moment for Blofeld to attack Bond. And then Blofeld is knocked unconscious because his head bumps into some medical equipment. And then all of a sudden Blofeld is lying in the exact right position to be strapped to that hospital bed. How? And then Bond knew in advance that if he pushed that cart, then Blofeld would slide into the mud. And Blofeld is not moving anymore, while 1 second before we see that he is fully conscious because he is stretching his arm. And this is why Bond traveled the whole world and has been beating up poor innocent people in public places to finally throw Blofeld in a pool of mud without even making sure that he is dead? You can imagine how happy I am with the great Shirley Bassey credit song, Diamonds Are Forever, because that wonderful song was really needed to make up for that ridiculous opening sequence. Hey, that was it for today. Thanks for listening to my critical approach to this James Bond scene. I'll see you at the next video. Thanks.
Stimulate and tease me.